It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Just found out a couple minutes ago, Eric's not going to be in. He's got food poisoning, so I hope he's okay. So, no, I did not chat with him. Thanks, Alan, for letting me know. But, yeah, a little while ago, apparently he let us know he's not feeling well. So hopefully he gets better quick. I didn't want to think about it. I'm not even going to think about it. Eric, we hope you get better very soon. But I don't want to think about food poisoning. I think I've only had it maybe once in my life, and I guess I'm going to feel blessed by that. How's everybody doing, huh? I know, yeah, we had a long weekend here, but we are back. A lot of people asking, wait a minute, why was Hilary Clinton at the Munich Security Conference? Before we even go there, somebody said, the Munich Security Conference, nobody's really talking about security much. But the question was, she's not an American politician. Why is she there? The answer is simple. This weekend, yesterday we celebrated President's Day. When she spoke at the conference, she was celebrating almost President's Day. You ready to go? There's so much to talk about. I had a bunch of different things, like the things that happened Friday and Saturday, and I had to make sure that I bookmarked all of them because it just was a tsunami of news. And I thought we would start out with what I thought was, and I knew it, I said, they can't sell this. And I saw it really starting Thursday, and then a lot on Friday. And then by Saturday, it sort of disappeared. Sunday, didn't see much of it. And by Monday, it was completely gone. And this is going to be the debate on photo ID. I just looking at this headline here. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is ready to put Senate Democrats to the test on voter ID legislation. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. But to me, it's fascinating watching the far left that now controls the Democratic Party trying to come up with a new talking point that they just hope is going to stick. And the one that came up was, well, you have to pay a fee to get your birth certificate. And if you want to get your license, you have to pay a fee. And if you want to get a passport, you have to pay a fee. So that's a poll tax. That's a poll tax on the American people. And I thought to myself, well, and of course it's not. A poll tax is specifically charging somebody to go vote. But they were trying to make the case that if there's any cost or inconvenience at all, it somehow is a poll tax. And the first thing that came to my mind is then everything's a poll tax. If you're going to vote, now Democrats really want to do the vote online, right? Well, you would need a cell phone or a computer. If you wanted to vote that way, you would have to buy a cell phone. You'd have to buy a computer. That's a poll tax. If you have to drive to your polling place, you've got to have a car. Or you've got to spend a ton of money. You've got to spend money on Uber if you can't walk there. That's a poll tax. And that was the one reason I'm not happy that Eric's out sick today is I thought to myself, man, we're going to have fun with this one. What will Eric come up with as to what a poll tax is? And I saw it a little bit on social media, and a few people got blasted, and then it was dropped. It was like, okay, that one's not going to work out. And I don't know now that this is going to be the debate of the week. The debate of the week is something, the debate right now with the Democrats is something that 83% of the population is against the position of the Democrats. I'm trying to think, is there any other issue that ranks at 83%? Has there been an issue in the history of the United States that has been at 83%? Anything? Well, besides the fact that, we know the Cowboys came from Mexico. It was such a crazy weekend. It's tough to stick on one topic. Because it was, for Democrats, it was really a pretty nightmare weekend. It really was with AOC and Newsom and everything else. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But that, too, the entire thing, we got to find a new talking point. Okay, anything, if you have to pay $3 to get your birth certificate. And I don't know what it is. I got last year, I had my the copy of my birth certificate, and I needed it a few years back for a passport, and then I don't know what happened, and then I let my passport go too far, but it wasn't far enough. But I got a birth certificate anyway in case I needed it, or in case I needed it for my enhanced license. But since I had an enhanced license already, that had already been done in the past, so they didn't need my birth certificate. But I had a copy of that if it was needed. And I brought a utility bill. I did it at the same time last year. I got my passport and license really in the same couple of weeks. And so it was like, okay, got to load up on ID. But the fact that they tried to throw that out, that it's a poll tax. Like, you're not going to win this. You're not going to win this one. And they seem not to care. And we'll get to this a little bit later on in the show. Roy Teixeira, who, lifelong Democrat, runs the website Liberal Patriot, who believes that the Democrats have just gone bat soup crazy on everything. I think it was him who wrote, he wrote one of the articles over the weekend about, what's wrong with the Democratic Party, and talks about the fact that the reason that Congress is so far radical left is because that's really what you're getting out of a lot of the state legislators and even city governments from the Democrats, that this is something that's coming from the ground up. The insanity of the Democratic Party. Look, I've got problems. You listen to this show. Eric and I have no problem voicing our displeasure at any Republican administration or any Republican Congress. If they're not conservative, we're the first ones to call them out. And Republicans, they've got their problems. But as I've said before, you look at it and you say, all right, I've got two choices here. And the choice of the Democrats is pure insanity. And that's why you have a lot of prominent Democrats, even in the media, that have come out and said, this is nuts. How is this happening? And the same thing on voter ID. You cannot sell it to the public. You've been doing it. You've been doing this for 3 decades now. Pounding. Think about this. The Democrats pounding year in and year out. It's racist. 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 CNN had the poll last week. 76% of blacks in favor of voter ID. 71% of all Democrats in favor of voter ID. Overall, 83%. And they can't win the argument because it's self-evident Because the public, if they felt they were being restricted from voting, the numbers would be way different in the polling that's out there. And it's not. And so, in a way, it's actually really humorous to watch all of this. The headline in Fox News, Thune guarantees voter ID bill to hit the Senate despite Schumer and Democratic opposition. We will have a vote. Oh, and then not only that, over the weekend, it was out all over the place, went viral. You know, Schumer talking, we'll have that audio coming up, Schumer talking back in 96 about how we must have voter ID. So everybody knows that the Democrats have changed 180 degrees on something that the public has not changed on. It's self-evident. And I'm amazed. One thing that amazes me is how the number one rule of politics, if something is self-evident to an individual, don't tell them that it's not. If they know and they experience it and they live it, you as a politician should not tell them it doesn't exist. That what you see that is self-evident right in front of your eyes, what you feel, what you see, what you witness, all of it is wrong, and we're right. And the Democrats on voter ID bill, it's just on voter ID and the voter ID bill and trying to jump, hopscotch over here, whatever. We've got to find a talking point here. And then everybody jumps on it. And people were getting, there's somebody who I'm very well acquainted with, doesn't live in this state, lives in a liberal state, who tried it. Well, that's a poll tax. If you have to get, that's a poll tax. And she was just eviscerated. Because that's all you do. You say, okay, fine. You're saying that if you have to get it's a poll tax, which it's not. Again, we're going to come up with our own idea of what a poll tax is. Constitutionally, that's not a poll tax, as we all know. In no law is that a poll tax. But it's like, okay, we're desperate. We've got to come up with something. You have to get a fee to get that birth certificate. It's a poll tax. You got to pay to get your license in your state. It's a poll tax. And fine, then everything's a poll tax. Driving your car, the gasoline you need to get to the poll if you've got to drive to your polling site. Oh, you don't have a car? You've got to Uber. Well, then Uber is a poll tax. What isn't a poll tax? And so quickly they had to move away and go to something else. But it just shows you how desperate they are. And with this here, we'll see what happens. But Thune says he's ready to put the Senate Democrats to the test on voter ID legislation, the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility America Act. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Has earned the backing of 50 Senate Republicans, including Thune, which is enough to break through a key procedural hurdle. Whether it can pass from the Senate to Trump's desk for now is still up in the air. If lawmakers take the traditional path in the upper chamber, still, Thune wants to put Democrats on the spot as midterm elections creep closer. We will have a vote. His comments came as he crisscrossed his home state of South Dakota, where he and Republicans in their respective states are outselling their legislative achievements as primary season fast approaches. But yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, I don't know of any other issue that polls as high as voter ID and American citizens voting. I don't know one that polls higher. And the Democrats are just saying, nope, you're all wrong. And we went through this already with the Georgia election law and the Jim Crow 2.0 and the Democrats having completely opposite opinions 10 years ago, 15 years ago than they have right now. And what's the situation with voting? The public is overwhelmingly in favor of not wanting fraud in elections. And it comes down to this. Democrats want fraud. We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number, or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric out tonight, food poisoning. Hopefully he's okay for tomorrow's show. Glad to have you with us. All right, here's one of the audio cuts from Chuck Schumer from the 90s that has been going around this weekend. Again, the arguments we're making are really the only arguments to make. 83% of Americans agree with it. Even Chuck Schumer did. Here we go.
Let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card. This is an anti-fraud amendment. Over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud.
Don't know what to say. This is one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking when people come out and say, well, you know something? You know, we need to compromise. Where? Where? All right. Let me see. If somebody, I got the compromise. If you've got a Blockbuster card, you can vote. I mean, is that? I was trying to think of something that was valuable to me in my wallet besides my license and credit cards. It's the only thing I could think of. I know we're going back 20 years, 25 years. Fishing license. I mean, it's just, and that's why it's like anything the Democrats come up with, they're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks. And it's not with the American public. They know it. And they are all out there, just like on the radical transgender movement. Exactly like the radical transgender movement, it's exactly the same. Everybody knows they're full of everyone. And they keep, jumping on it. Oh, I did see that Hilary Clinton was doing the thing at the Munich Security Conference on women. And who was the first speaker? A man. The transgender congressperson, who's a man, biological man, was the first. I mean, this is all pure. It's all insane on the left.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's out sick this morning. Food poisoning. I hope he's okay. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. I did find the article, and it was Alicia, I think it's Nieves is her name, from compactmag.com. Interesting article. I found it on realclearpolitics.com. By the way, it's a great website, Real Clear Politics. They have Real Clear Politics, Real Clear Economics, Real Clear Sports, Real Clear World. And what you get out of it is just a ton of opinion articles, both from the left and right. And it's really a wonderful resource to see what a lot of major American newspapers are saying and just prominent op-ed pieces that are being written out there. And this one was Why the Democratic Party Can't Moderate. And she talks about here in the state of Texas, said is one of the final days of the Texas legislature regular season in 2023. She said, I was there. I was, with other staffers in the Democratic House Minority Leader's office. I listened closely to the floor proceedings on a bill to ban gender transition treatments for minors. And it had been called to the floor, and a Houston Democratic lawmaker named John Thune was about to give a speech in favor that would end her career. She's a Democrat. As she walked to make the speech, she had the speech in one hand and a tissue in another. The chamber grew quiet. There was visible unease among both her Republican and Democratic colleagues as she began to speak. In a profession that rewards caution and punishes miscalculation swiftly, it is rare to watch an elected official willingly walk the plank. In the months leading up to this moment, national and state progressive advocacy groups applied intense pressure on Thune, going as far as to threaten to unseat her in a primary. Other members of the Democratic caucus discouraged her from breaking ranks, with one Democratic lawmaker urging her to hold your nose and vote against it, which means you're voting for. You want child mutilation. But the Democratic lawmaker urged her to hold her nose and vote against it with the rest of the party, particularly as the legislation would require no Democrat to pass through the Republican-controlled legislature. But Thune made her decision clear. Her religious convictions and her own research required her to vote in favor of the legislation. Less than a year after that vote, progressive groups and aligned unions poured more than $1 million to help a hand-selected challenger defeat Thune in a heated primary and runoff campaign. As I watched the relentless campaign against her unfold, I struggled to understand why the state party failed to defend one of its own from progressive groups. The newly elevated issue of medical transition treatments for minors was far removed from the traditional positions of Democratic officials such as civil rights, worker protections, and public education. But in this instance, it was treated as a defining test of loyalty. The party's decision was made all the more perplexing by who John Thune is. She would seem to embody the modern Democratic Party, an African-American woman, a lawyer, and the daughter of a city maintenance worker and an English teacher. The generations of African-Americans who built her district of Sunnyside, Houston's first black community, were working-class, Christian, and loyal to the Democratic Party. They helped deliver Texas for Kennedy and Johnson, under whose terms the Democrats passed sweeping civil rights legislation. But African Americans, particularly older voters who form a significant share of the Democratic base, tend to be more socially conservative. Rather than see her vote in favor of the ban as one that reflected the will of the voters in her plurality black district, the state Democratic Party determined that allowing the progressive groups to remove her was less costly than defending her. After her loss, she put out a statement saying she was leaving the Democratic Party. She wrote, "This is not the party I grew up with. I have witnessed firsthand how the so-called liberal left now stifles thoughtful debate, silencing dissent with an iron fist, demanding blind allegiance to an ideology where one must comply or be cast out." Then it goes on to talk about a Democratic lawmaker in Florida that went through the same thing. And, made the case that there's little room within today's party for any type of moderation at all, and made a great point that what keeps Congress voting this way is the fact that in so many liberal cities and the Democrats in legislatures keep moving to the insane left, which is what we should call it, because that's what it is. It's insanity. And so that was, and then it goes on to talk about Mandami and everything else, and then just says, but you got to understand where this is coming from. This is coming from the fact that this is where the Democratic Party has gone. And there's no chance of them moderating, because if they're not moderating now, they're never going to do it. They don't care. There's a lot of talk, for example, on the congressional vote last week on tariffs, and whether you're for or against tariffs, or you believe tariffs have a place. If you have a constitutional issue on tariffs and who should be able to enact them, that's fine. But tariffs, if you look at it in the scope of American politics, has been something that Democrats used to embrace. Now you have some in the Republican Party that support tariffs. Others don't wish, of course, to get fury coming from the administration on it if they vote against it. But if you look at the whole concept of tariffs overall in the political history of the United States, it's something that has been mainstream. When to apply it, how to do it, may be viewed as radical from the right or the left, but it's something that has been discussed economically for the longest time. A man being a woman because the man says so. Men competing against women in sports. Men exposing their genitals to children. Oh, by the way, one of the greatest things I saw on social media, and we've probably referred to it this way before, but just the way that it was written just hit me head on. It goes, Democrats talking about Epstein? Democrats are the one that want men in girls' restrooms and locker rooms. Naked men. Shut up. And that's what the actual meme said. Shut up. And it was so blunt. And so you look at it, the politicians have to endorse the insanity. When you look at it, that representative in Texas, a black woman liberal lawyer. We don't care. We don't care. We're going to pretend we care about minorities, but we really don't. If you're a minority, you're a minority woman. If you don't endorse the fact that men can be women, if you will not endorse that men should compete against women in sports, if you don't believe that men shouldn't be exposing themselves to women in locker rooms, we don't care whether you're a liberal black woman. You're out of here. You're not perverted enough for us. And it goes back to, as we talked last week about, Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, last week. The things that he was saying, trying to defend all this insanity, the perversion in their minds, the misogyny, and try to wrap it in the Bible. It's just as reprehensive as you could possibly imagine. Eric and I when we were watching that last week, before we, played it on the air from Beshear, we're looking at each other going, what the hell? If you're a governor and you don't believe, well, if you're a governor and know this is a tough thing to sell, and you say to yourself, well, let's say that the Bible, I'm going to say the Bible. I'm going to communicate to everybody that the Bible says a man can be a woman if the man says so, and the Bible endorses naked men in women's spaces. They're lost. And as I said last week, I've been seeing more of this, and I think it's right. It's something that we've said. Again, the best hope for Republicans in November could be the Democrats. The Democrats believe it's the Republicans on economic issues because of tariffs. But the Republicans are now looking at this saying, wow, they're not going to even try to moderate in any way. And it's going to be fascinating as to see how this, quote, partial shutdown, how this thing comes to fruition, especially with the Republicans saying, nope, we're going to make them take a vote on it. We're going to pound this voter ID. Democrats are on, I've never seen a political party jump on an issue where so much of their own party, where landslide numbers of their own party are against them and still pushing for it when we talk about citizens voting and voter ID. When it's absolutely clear what the public thinks about it and the fact of it's a supermajority landslide. So, yeah, I thought that article was really interesting. And I saw a lot of that this weekend. Almost the acknowledgement, even from Democrats, as moderate, the so-called moderate Democrats, which would only be people in media, like a Bill Maher. That's how they're. I still think he's a liberal. Bill Maher, Jonathan Turley, whatever, Roy Teixeira. That are, basically saying they're not going to change. They're just going to become as radical as you can possibly imagine. We are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's out, food poisoning. I'm here. All right, let's go to Bill Maher from last Friday. Ready for this one? Here we go.
Doug Burnham, he's the Interior Secretary. Listen to this, the way they all line up behind this nonsense. He said, CO2, carbon, was never a pollutant. He said, when we breathe, we emit CO2. Okay, Doug, you know what? Let's try this little experiment. Tonight, when you get home, go in the garage, close the door, turn the car on, and let's see if carbon is a pollutant, okay?
Wow. He doesn't know the difference between carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. And neither does the audience. This is the ignorant, clueless society that we live in. What I really hope, though, is that Bill Maher does not confuse H2O with H2SO4. Yes, you do not want to confuse H2O with H2SO4, sulfuric acid. All right? So we want to help out Bill Maher here because I've seen on the podcast he's always drinking something. I don't want him to make that mistake. It may not be water he's drinking. It might be a cocktail. I'm not sure, but we want to make sure that we protect him. Remember, it's not the same, Bill. CO, CO2, H2O, H2SO4. Bill, knowledge of chemistry actually matters.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's out sick today. Food poisoning from what he texted us earlier, so we hope that he is okay. Man, it was a sad day yesterday. Found out Robert DuVall, age 95, died.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know what?
That's the one thing that probably most people are familiar with, maybe. He did so many things, starting with, Apocalypse Now, Godfather. And, I go back to the last really 20, 25 years where a lot more people probably are familiar with a lot of his work because he did a ton of movies, the TV movies. I probably got today when I posted it, I probably got more messages about Lonesome Dove than anything. He was in some other great made-for-TV movies, Broken Trail. Love that. I absolutely love that movie. Eric and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Thomas Hayden Church, and then Open Range with Kevin Costner. Those were great westerns, and great character in that one. Remember, he first started out. He was in To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, he was Boo in To Kill a Mockingbird. The Great Santini with Michael O'Keefe. That's how Michael O'Keefe got the job in Caddyshack as Danny, is because some of the directors or whatever had seen him in The Great Santini and said, man, Michael O'Keefe can go head to head with Robert DuVall. He's got the chops to do this. And also, let me see, the Apostle is the movie that came out in the last, 10 years? The Judge with Robert Downey Jr. There was a good movie. It was a good movie. Disturbing in a way. One of the movies I love. Oh, man. Secondhand Lions. What a great movie. In fact, I did post on my X page at Gary Red Eye 1, one of my favorite scenes from that movie, the fight scene, the bar fight scene, which is just, it's great acting and absolutely hilarious at the same time. But he just did. I read a review said, he went in, did the character, and then went home. And I did see a couple of social media things today. Everybody on the left I talked to says, well, yeah, I liked his work, even though I didn't agree with him on politics. He was known as a conservative, but he really didn't talk much about that at all. What I loved, I feel a little bit embarrassed, but I never saw Lonesome Dove. Never saw it. And when I admitted that to a couple of our listeners today, they went, "You got to watch it. You've got to watch." And that was a series, right? Miniseries. Yeah. But if it is, I've seen when it's on, when somebody's playing it, I have seen maybe 5 minutes of it. But the scenes I've seen, DuVall was not in the scenes that I saw. I think it was Tom Selleck. Was he in that movie? Yeah, okay. I have the right one then. But Open Range is a great movie with Kevin Costner. I just love his character in that. And I guess you could draw some similarities between that and the movie Broken Trail, which I just thought, to me, I just loved his performance. And I love the chemistry between him and Thomas Hayden Church. Well, and you could say the same thing with Kevin Costner in Open Range. But, yeah, what a career. I actually watched Assassination Tango that he put together where, he wanted to get, tango dancing into a movie, and he was a hitman. But he just did, my gosh. And now, and it's because of many of you out there, I guess I also have to watch Tender Mercies. So, but he's just so good, though. Just so good. Just so sad. What I liked about the Westerns is, and I can't speak for Lonesome Dove, but the Westerns that I really, really liked, his character in a insane time in our history, doing what people were attempting to do at that time, which was survive. I just like the great moral character that he was. And I say that because you can see the similarities between Open Range and Broken Trail. That there is a chemistry with his, co-stars, who they are together, traveling together, whether it's Open Range with Kevin Costner or Broken Trail with Thomas Hayden Church. There is a bond of morality that they have, of great morality. And I just thought the way that he portrayed it was just so genuine. So, yeah, what a loss. And now I know I'm going to get 8 million. Well, what about this movie? What about this one? I wrote it on X today. Nobody is going to agree on what his best role was because he had so many best roles or best performances. I guess what people are saying is what their favorite is. You can do that. This is fair. But then again, my favorite is based on not seeing some of his movies. And so I'll probably go back and go, okay, I can do that. I can watch a Robert DuVall movie. Normally, if a movie is titled Tender Mercies, odds are, and I have no idea what the movie's about, but odds are I'm going to go, well, Tender Mercies or Armageddon. I like Armageddon. I'm throwing that out as an example, not the movie Armageddon. I was just using the headline. I'm getting a bunch of shaking their heads. No, not Armageddon, not Armageddon, not Armageddon. Hey, I like Bruce Willis's character when he was chasing the what's his name? I can't think of that actor. Man, I was really good with all the actors. Chasing around the guy dating his daughter, shooting at him at the oil rig. On the oil rig. I like that part of it. So, yeah, just so sad. But 95. The other thing I liked is what I liked about him, he was, without question, you would see him in these characters over the last 20, 25 years. He was elderly. He was old. And you don't see a lot of movies saying, let's use this old guy as the leading character. And so he think about it, went from character actor to what he became at the end of his life, which was a number of movies on the screen, on television. I don't think people care. You know, I remember when it was if you were in Hollywood, it was a step down to be on TV. Some great acting has been done on TV. Some incredible acting has been done on TV. I mean, just stellar acting. And he was, he was one of them. But you had an elderly man who played a number of elderly characters who was able to hold a lead in a movie where people became absolutely passionate about his performance and his characters. So rest in peace, sir. Wow. What a legacy he leaves for his life. Oh, the other thing on Hollywood, I just wanted to respond to this really quick because I saw this also Thursday or Friday. And I like Kevin James, the comedian. In fact, I probably, what was it, King of Queens he was on? The reason I actually watched that show is because when that was in its run, and even when it was in syndication, when my mom was alive, my dad only watched really on his own when he was young, from what I know, one TV show consistently, and that was Gunsmoke. That was it. Then he worked his whole life. When he retired and finally was sitting there with my mom, whenever I was back visiting them, it would be King of Queens or Walker, Texas Ranger. And not because their son lives here. I don't think they ever put that together. And that's where I saw Kevin James, and genuinely he's a funny guy. I think he's a really funny guy. But he said last week that, nobody wants to hear me talk about, and I'm paraphrasing here, nobody wants to hear me talk about politics. Look, there's enough experts out there doing it. Now, he might have been sarcastic in doing it, but I've always disliked that. It goes back to, and we don't get it anymore, because we told, people don't communicate with us and start out by saying, look, I'm only a janitor, or I'm only a truck driver, or I'm only a nurse, and so what do I know? Stop it. The powerful and the elite want you to think that way. But he said the experts out there have it. Don't do that. Whenever I hear that, the first thing that comes to my mind, and it may not be the case with him, but the first thing that comes to my mind is you just don't want to get involved in it. That's fine. Just say I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved in that. Here's what I do. Here's what I want to do. But when you make it sound like that all these issues can only be understood with people with the expertise and the education to understand these complicated things, like, because you're not educated. You don't understand why a man can be a woman because a man says so. Or you don't understand my racism of identity politics. Or you don't understand the great morality of the misogyny against women in the radical transgender movement. And you don't understand, even though you're for a photo ID and citizenship to vote in this country, you don't understand how discriminatory it is, even though the people you claim it's discriminatory against don't believe it's discriminatory against them. I've always said, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't give these people that make our laws credit that they don't deserve. Well, they have a higher intellect because they have a position and a title. Going back to my dad. By the way, my dad says hi to everybody. Going back to my dad. You give a person a title and they believe they got an infusion of brains. And it's true. And that's why they sit there with this confidence, whether it's AOC talking with confidence or, okay, we got to play it, or Obama over the weekend, which we got to play that audio. Him and UFOs. Where was it? I think it was Hugh. Let me just see. Hewitt, I think, that had the greatest line about Obama. Oh, it was just. Here it is, and it's true. Former President Obama's superpower, and it is strong, is to say absolutely nothing at great length and make it sound significant and deep when it is only an extended exercise in signaling. That is so true. Eric and I have said that so many times. He loved to, somebody would ask him a question. He'd be doing an interview show, and he would go off on a 5-minute answer. And you go, well, yeah, but I'm not going. Don't interrupt. And he would give 5-minute filibuster, never say anything, and they'd move on to the next question. But the UFO thing was just great. We are Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
What is the outlook for total farm household income for this year? USDA's latest farm income forecast shows
at the median, income earned on the farm is low.
Despite a 1.8% increase in median total farm household income in 2025, projected on average to be over $113,000, according to USDA economist Carrie Lakowski. So for 2026,
total farm household income at the median is forecast to increase 5% nominally, or almost 3% when adjusted for inflation in 2026.
When factoring in off-farm income sources to total farm household income,
median off-farm income is forecast to increase slightly at 1% in 2026 after adjusting for inflation.
Following a similar year-over-year increase for off-farm income in 2025. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has food poisoning. Ugh. Hopefully he's back tomorrow. All right, let's go to this audio cut. Obama over the weekend. All right? I'll just play it. Here we go.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility, unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
So, my gosh, did that over blow up, huh? Obama, first president to admit there are aliens. And because he said they're real. It was, and then later had to come out and correct it and say, no, he has seen absolutely no evidence that aliens exist. So, but with the billions and billions of planets out there, there might be life out there. The same thing that the only conclusion that anybody can make is, I don't know, there could be, but the evidence isn't there. There is no hard evidence. And so he had to come out and correct it. But he said, yes. And everybody went nuts. And I'm like, he's going to have to back off of this one. How long is this one going to take? And so he put out his clarification. But then it just keeps it going. Then why did you say yes? This is like this is going to become Epstein now. It's like, but you first said they exist. So why did you say they exist? But notice, I think one of the most fascinating things is to show the lack of curiosity of the reporter who never asked the next question, why do you say yes? That's the next logical question, right? You said why did you say yes, they exist?
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. He's out sick. Hopefully he's back tomorrow. Eric, get well soon. Don't eat bad food. Hope he's okay. I don't think I've ever had like full-fledged food poisoning. You know, I've eaten something, had a little bit of an upset stomach, but I'm told that I've really never had food poisoning because I hear when you get it, it's really bad. And we're just going to move on because we're not going to go out. We're not going to get into discussions and the minutia of what the symptoms are. But we had played former President Obama talking about aliens, extraterrestrials, and how he had to backtrack on that one. Oh, yes, they're real. No, we don't have any evidence that they're real. And I just, whether it was the Bill Maher thing on not knowing the difference between carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, there's a certain confidence. What I am always amazed by the left, there's a certain confidence of your cluelessness. You talk with AOC does the same thing. She talks with confidence, but it's nothing there. There's nothing there. Nobody's home. But Obama, and I agree with Hugh Hewitt, because Eric, how many times have Eric and I said it? He's the guy that will speak and use big words for 5 minutes. And at the end, you say, what the hell did he say? I don't even understand it. Anybody understand where he's coming from? He said nothing. Obama, I will give him this, was one of the greatest politicians who could say nothing and have you walk away not us, not conservatives, but have a significant portion of America walk away built with confidence from somebody who has said nothing. Or has said the opposite of what his message originally started out as. And there's two things that Eric and I always go back to with former President Obama. And the one was where he said, you didn't build this. That government built it. That government money is what built it. And we said, well, that's what you get from somebody I always refer to as a cocktail socialist. You really, by saying that, you're completely clueless on how the economic system runs. We talked about it last week about the sheriff that did not know the three branches of government. We went, how can you operate in politics? How can you even comment on the state of the United States if you have no idea how our form of government works? We're fascist. We're fascist. Well, how with the three branches of government? Huh? What's that? I don't understand that. Three branches of government? It's just, we're all fascist. Yeah, but don't scream louder. Just tell me why we're fascist. Please explain it to me. And they can't do it. But when Obama said you didn't build that, of course you built it. Government transfers money. It's all government does. Government doesn't have any money. They get it from productive sources. The reason that the United States exists, the reason that we continue to exist is because companies make legitimate profits. That's it. And everything that you see there, all the government money comes from corporate and people's profits. Everything. There is no money that comes from the government. It all comes from the private sector. He sold that to you, if you're a Democrat. He sold it to you and many independents, and you bought it. And it was completely 100% wrong. There is nothing when it comes to providing money that the government does. They transfer money from productive purposes to many times unproductive purposes. Sometimes those unproductive purposes, though, when we talk economics, are critical for society. For example, military, police, whatever. In order to have a society, that's the cost of doing business, even in a free society. The courts, like when we talk about what the federal government's role was initially supposed to be instead of what it has actually become. But Obama, for years we've just said, he says nothing. He's the most, I always love this one, he's the most intelligent president ever. Geez, you want to be BS, don't you? Moving on, AOC. Ready for AOC at the Munich Security Conference? Here we go.
So I think one of the reasons why, not just myself, but many of our colleagues here, in fact, many Democrats that are here as well, is because we want to tell a larger story, that what is happening is indeed very grave. And we are in a new era, domestically and globally. There have been many leaders who've said we will go back, and I think we have to recognize that we are in a new day and in a new time. But that does not mean that the majority of Americans are ready to walk away from a rules-based order and that we're ready to walk away from our commitment to democracy. I think what we identify is that in a rules-based order, hypocrisy is vulnerability. And so I think what we are seeking is a return to a rules-based order that eliminates the hypocrisies around when too often in the West we look the other way for inconvenient populations.
Huh? What? Huh? And then the China answer was hilarious. I found this interesting on the, let me get back to it, on the Huddle podcast with Sean Spicer, Dan Turntine, who was a Democrat, talking about AOC. Here's the Democrat, Dan, talking about what he thought about not just AOC, but the reaction overall, even from Democrats.
I think, first off, for those who don't know, the United States posture toward Taiwan is what they call strategic ambiguity. We neither confirm 100% to anger the Chinese that we will defend Taiwan, even though we send them billions in arms. And we also don't take it off the table with the idea that such ambiguity would be a check on China. I believe that she knew that, but she did not have an answer, right? So she thought, if I say one or the other, I'm going to get killed. But what it did was a reminder of is, you're now on the big stage. You are, this is not a, Union Hall in Queens where there might be a local reporter. And if you do something like this, no one's really paying attention. Her team hyped her appearance. She froze like a deer in headlights. To your point, Sean, I saw the Kamala Harris references online. But here's one of the biggest things, because we were texting over the weekend and I said to you guys, look, in the big picture, I don't think this is going to, end her career. But what I found fascinating was how she and her team reacted. She canceled media appearances on Saturday. There was nobody online defending her. Even on the left, if you went to Blue Sky, there were not kind of like if Trump does something like this, and he's had plenty of weaves and deflections, his army, if you even so much as like mock him, comes back at you with a baseball bat, right? She had no defenders.
That's really interesting. I mean, the media tried to pump her up a little bit, but wow. And it was sometime over the days that we were off, where I was on some I don't know who. Gosh, so much happened over the weekend. Somebody was promoting the fact that wow, it would just be great. Harris AOC, that's it. Harris AOC. And I'm just thinking to myself, the delusion is just getting, there's delusion on top of delusion over and over again. But yeah, I just, some of the op-ed pieces that were written over the weekend on it. I'm trying to see if I have I'm just going through my stuff right here to see if I have the one from National Review where I burst out laughing because it was just, here it is. AOC's breakout performance. There was a lot of sarcasm in it. Here it is, part of Nora Rothman's column. Marco Rubio's speech was pure appeal to Western culture. She sneered from the stage at the University of Berlin, deploying deservedly exaggerated air quotes. She added that her favorite part of the speech was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain, at which, that point, she and everyone else in the audience laughed at Rubio's ignorance. The Mexicans and descendants of African enslaved people would like to have a word with you on that. Okay, so ChatGPT says the Spanish introduced horses to the North American continent. And the culture is a late 18th century import to the Americas. Regardless, AOC's confidence put Trump's smug diplomat in his place. We can't underestimate the appeal of going back to these well-worn grooves. AOC warned of Rubio's thin appeal to shared cultural affinities across the Western world. A lot of what we talk about when we talk about a class-based internationalist perspective also means ending the hypocrisy toward the global South. Like what? It's the response. Well, like the unilateral U.S. operation that resulted in Maduro's capture. Sure, AOC conceded Maduro was anti-democratic, but that doesn't mean Americans can kidnap the head of the state. And he writes, well, if you ignore the fact that Maduro's capture was pursuant to a U.S. arrest warrant. And then she said, and engage of acts of war just because a nation is below the equator, and Venezuela is situated entirely north of the equator. If you ignore those things, then AOC's logic is unassailable. Wow. The problem all the Democrats are going to have is talking on the national stage, especially when the public doesn't agree with them, and especially when things are self-evident against you. And that's where the Democrats stand right now. The Democrats have not moderated on one issue, not one. They're going further to the left. We are Red Eye Radio.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric's out today. Food poisoning. Ooh. Get better soon, Eric. All right, I want to play this audio here. So much audio over the weekend that I got. This is on voter ID, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary on CNN, and this is so true. Here we go.
This narrative, it has to be bipartisan by every metric. Every 24 months, we go through this debate over and over again. When every country in the Nordic countries in Europe, France, Switzerland, Canada, Australia, solved this problem decades ago. You got to be a citizen to vote. You got to prove it. We all agree at the table on that one. Number two, there's such advancement in technology to make sure there's no cheating. We should implement it here and get all this crapola over with.
But it's true. But we do this. You know, this went through the cycle of, oh, my gosh, it was 20 years ago where it was voter ID is racist, voter ID is racist, voter ID is racist. And then Warnock in Georgia comes out, might have been 5-6 years ago, and said, what? No Democrat. I don't know anybody who says that voter ID is racist. Now they're back to it again. One wonders, where does the Democratic Party actually stand when they have reversed on this issue 180 degrees from where they were just a few years back? And you have to ask yourself, why? And you got to ask yourself why, because landslide number of Democrats are against the Democrats' position.
This is Red Eye Radio.